Everybody, we are back of making 1S battery banks to charge 6 batteries at one time off of a good charger so you can get them done properly instead of using these little stupid little chargers like this. You can actually use your big charger, good quality charger like this one, something similar to this that has storage capabilities and everything else. So we're going to do the bottom part of this. Yesterday we did the top piece right here. If you didn't see that video, I got a link in the description. We're going to try and get this all done today, including testing and everything, but I don't know that we're going to get this done in this one video. We're going to keep an eye on the time. I don't want it to go absolutely too insanely long. So let's get started on this, and this time we're going to be putting on the balance lead. We're going to wire this bottom plate to the top plate. We're going to put our XT60 on there and get everything else done. So, like we said before, negative is where the notches are, or the little clips are on the balance lead, and then this side is the where you can see the pins inside. So negative side is going to end up going up here, but we're not doing that one yet. We're going to do all these red ones, all these positive side, and you got to make sure you get all these in order, just like you're supposed to. So we're going to do number 6 first. So we're just going to put this down in this first hole on the corner. And I'm putting this on a flat surface so I don't jam it all the way through, because I want to solder it on this side. And I need to bridge it. We're going to end up bridging across to this next pad right here. I'm moving it over just a little bit because we're going to be putting a standoff on here. So we need to make room for that standoff. Okay. So let's go ahead and get some solder on that. Solder on that pad. Okay, that's number 6. Then we're going to get number 5. Let's make sure that's number 5. And I'll bump the camera again. And yesterday I explained I couldn't get the camera to stay focused if I had it up higher. So it's right by my head right now. All right, so number 5 right there. Solder that one in. Get a good beat on this outer pad there. We're going to need that little bit of extra solder. Then we're going to do number 4. Hopefully you guys can see this. Number 4 is the next one in. There it goes. Okay, so we don't want this going all the way through and sticking out the other side. We just want it flush with the other side pretty much. That way we can bend it over and get a little solder right there. All right, then number 1 goes on the last one right here. Bring it over so we have room for that standoff that's going to go in there. Okay. So we got a lot of solder on there. It's because we're going to be adding wires on here and we're going to bridge them across so there's a little more strength. As long as there's no shorts in between here, everything's good. So let's double check that we got our wires straight. And it looks to be the case. Number 6, number 5, number 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so all those are done. We're not doing the negative on this yet. So we're going to put the other wires here. Okay, so I'm using 24 gauge stranded, and this is silicone wire, silicone coated wire. And I don't like cutting off this before I know how long I need to make it, because it's on a spool. This stuff isn't super cheap either. Okay, so we're going to we're going to strip this 24 gauge wire long enough to go from that pad to that pad. So we need about that much there. Twist it. And if we tin this wire first, it'll help get it on there quicker. And I'm not going to be able to use the clip on this so easily. So I'm just going to hold it down with my finger. And I got enough solder on here that I should be able to just press it down. And we're going to get it right on top of those two pads. Hopefully we don't bridge it across to the other balance connector. Okay. And there is a bridge right there. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is bridged to the next balance lead. So we're just going to do that right there. Clean the tip off. That should take care of it. We're going to check all that before we actually plug it into anything anyway. Okay, so right here, make sure our negative side's down here, because when we flip it over, our positives are all going to be to this side. So right now all our positives are up on this side. So we're going to set this right there next to it. I'm going to bring this up, give it just a tiny bit of slack to go up to this positive lead right here, positive pin. Clip it with a little bit of extra so we have some to strip. We just have to strip off just enough that we can get some solder on that to connect it to that other wire. Doesn't take much. And then we're going to tin this so we don't mess it up while we're messing with these other wires. Okay, so there's number 6. That's going to go to this one up here. So now we're going to do the next one. Strip off enough that we can get across that bridge. Lay that right across. Okay, that's good. Now we're going to lay this up here, right up against it. Same thing, but now we're going to number 5. Give just a little bit of slack, not much. I just usually just get them right up against each other, press it down in that little crevice, V, hold it up there, clip it off just a little bit beyond that positive pin. And we strip off a little bit for that. These two are about the same length because they're really close together. One's going back and one's right there on the end. Okay, there's probably not enough wire, but it should get a good connection when we go to solder it in. There we go. It's a little bit better. Okay, we're going to tin that. Okay, so that's number 5. We're going to go on to the next one. And the next one, you got the idea. So this first one goes to that pin. This second one goes to this one. So that's number 6. Goes to the first one there. And then number 5 goes to this one here. That's number 5. And then the next pin is going to go to that one. And so on down the line. So we're going to have longer and longer wires going down here to reach these pins. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video. You got the idea of how we're doing these wires. I'm going to get these all on here, and then we'll stop at that point and get them all soldered on. Okay, so we got all these wires on here on this end, and doesn't look like anything's bridged at all. We will check the continuity on all that here a little while after we get it all together. So we're going to start with number 6, which goes up to number 6 up here on the positive side. And we're going to put it to the outside of this pin as best we can, because we do not want it to bridge across to the negative side at all. That would be a bad thing. And yes, I want to burn my fingers. That got a little warm. Okay. It's on there. Now we're going to go to number 5. That one goes over here to number 5. To the outside of the pin, if we can all get it to do it. We do not want these going into the inside of the pin. And just know that you got your fingers that close to a soldering iron and that close to the end of the wire, it's going to get hot. Now we're going to do number 4. So we got to make sure we got number 4. Same thing here. Okay, so now we got all these. Number 6, number 5, number 4, number 3, number 2, and number 1. So when we flip this up, you can see a little better that they're all in order. And they're all to the positive side of each one of these pins like this. So at this point, we are ready to do the XT60 and the negative side of the balance lead. Move these wires out of the way. So for the XT60, since we're only doing little 1S batteries, I'm using some 18 gauge, which is actually overkill for it, but I'm still putting 18 gauge. And we're going to cut a positive and negative piece, black and red, that is the same length as this here. So we're going to go all the way to the end of this balance lead. And we're going to go to where the balance leads connect here. So right about there. Make sure they're the same length, or at least close. Close enough. All right. So now we're going to get our positive side on first. It's going to go up here on the positive right there. So we're going to tin this before we do that. And I said it before, always have a nice clean soldering tip. Tin the soldering tip before you actually solder, just a little bit, and it'll help everything flow. Okay, so now we need to get it on here. Did a peak, don't like that. Okay, that's down. Now we're going to do the negative side. And get it to stay up off the table enough. Nice flow, and there it goes. Now we got one more wire here. This is the negative side of the balance lead, and we're going to put that up higher on this so it's kind of close to where these are. Put it like where those pins are right there, those pads. And we do have to move it over to get it out of the way of the, what do you call it? Standoffs we're going to put in here. I hate it when that happens. It's splayed out. Get some fresh solder on that. There we go. I have to put a little fresh solder on this one because it didn't want to take very well. I might have to clamp this into the vise here. So we're just going to slip this in here. Then we're going to try this. Now it's held down, it's not flopping around. And this one right here, I'm going to have to move it over just a little bit. That gives some room. You keep it as low profile as possible here. Not pretty, but it's in there. All right, so now we got to get the XT60 connector on here. And I'm using XT60s that have the sheath all over it, and that just pops on like that. You don't necessarily need to use heat shrink in this case. And we're going to strip this. Strip about maybe an 1/8 of an inch off of there, a little more, probably 3/16. 10 those. Okay, so now what we need to do is get our XT60 ready. I'll wind this down. And with the XT60s, the tapered end is going to be your negative on an XT60. It's even marked right there, negative. If you got the true Amass, you're always going to have the mark right there. So positive is the flat side, negative is the tapered side. So keep that in mind while you're doing this. Now, I'm going to start with the positive side and put the sheath on your wires first. I've forgotten to do that a couple of times and had to desolder and put it on there. I've done that with heat shrink too. If you want to do heat shrink, you got to put your heat shrink on first. So we're starting with the positive side of the XT60. Let's get a clean tip. Get a good amount of solder in there. Get a nice flow. And you work with this when it's hot. You don't waste any time getting it in there. If you have to, reheat the solder in there. And then when you put that down, it flows in real nice. If you can get the whole thing to hold still. There we go. All right. Now a little tip with XT60s as well. If you can't get it to go in that quick, you can end up messing up the plastic. It'll heat the plastic up too much. It'll bend your pin in here. And that can make it impossible or very difficult to get your other end of the plug on. So what you can do is put the other side of the plug on, and then that will help hold it together and aligned when you're soldering these on. I typically don't do that because typically I can get it in there in and out really quick, but right now it just wasn't cooperating for some reason. Good amount of solder in there. Now we're doing the negative side. Where'd that solder come from? Okay. This is the first one that's messed with me in probably about 6 months. And of course it's during a video. Okay, so now we got that on there. And we're going to bring the sheath up. And it just snaps right on. Just like that. Now you got the XT60 plug on there. Now, everything is complete except for putting the standoffs on here.